how do you go about the interviewing process if it's something that you don't have a lot of experience with and you potentially never conducted an interview before? What are some things to get you on the right track? And I've heard, because interviewing sounds like something that's pretty straightforward, but I've heard people talk about how it is like, everybody gets it wrong. And so I'm kind of curious about that. And I don't have a lot of experience with it. So,
Yeah. No, great question, Pablo. So nobody likes interviewing. I'll just say it. Everybody hates it. Candidates hate it. Managers hate it. And in fact, I used to work on site at a pretty big company, and I was running the vendor program. And I did a poll. I was just kind of curious I polled like 10,000 managers. And I said, what's the least thing that you like? And every one of them said hiring. Every one of them. It was almost unanimous. It's crazy. And in that was interviewing, right? They just don't like it. So you're absolutely right, Pablo. There's a lot of things that you can get wrong with it. There's a lot of things that you can get right with it. So if you're doing a virtual interview like we all are, I'll flip it on both sides. I do train a lot of people on how to do mock interviews from the candidate side, and I've trained people on how to do it from a manager side. But going into it and understanding that the candidate really hates it just as much as you do. So try to make it a two-way street. So really encouraging you guys to ask really open-ended questions, because that's what I encourage them to ask you. So when I give them an interview, I really give them the entire profile of the organization, right? So that's the same thing that I would give to you guys. Here's the entire profile of the candidate. So have it as a conversational piece. If it's technical? Yes, you definitely need to dig into their technology, their depths, ask them technical questions, dig harder into them. One of the first startups, actually it is the first startup that I ever did, was a company called Proof. And it was a crowd assessment, or not a crowd assessment, but it was a crowd pool where I took technical screens and gave that out to experts. And then those experts would bid on doing that technical screen for me, and then they'd send it back to me. So if I was looking for a Java engineer, I'm not a Java guy. I'm not going to pretend to be a Java developer, but I know a Java developer, so I'd send it out to them. And I attended a lot of those calls. And so when you're trying to hire senior IT people or even mid IT people, a lot of managers get it wrong to where they make it they make it uncomfortable. They make it where it's fire a question, and then, okay, cool, great. Or they'll go, all right, cool, you got any questions for me? And you're just burnt out. And it can't burn out just going through it. And if they're doing a whiteboarding, it's even more burnout, right? Look at the way Google does interviews. Google does 6, 7, 8 rounds of interviews, and they ask those very obscure questions. If it's not relevant for the job, then don't really ask about it, right? Ask what's relevant for the job. Again, this is the problem that I have right now. I just need you to solve that problem. So as a manager and as a founder, if you're focusing that interview process on that, then you're going to be able to weed people out within 5 to 10 minutes. It's not really solving the problem. I'll keep you posted. Another thing that I really encourage people to do is if they didn't do well in an interview, or if they did do well in an interview, but they came in second place, like what we'd like to call silver medalists, let them know. Let them know. Just be open and honest about it. There's so many candidates that go into interviews and then never hear from them again. And that's where a really bad candidate experience is, when I don't hear from you. And I go in and I spend my time on learning what you're doing, and I'm really passionate about it. And maybe I completely bombed the interview. Let me know. So then I go into the next one and at least I'm a little bit better. And I know that's really hard because a lot of people don't want to hear no, but it's really critical that they do. And even if you guys can't do it, just delegate it to one of your teammates. Delegate it to someone within your organization that can say, hey, we're passing on you, and we're passing on you for this reason. But anyway, I guess I would say is make it conversational. And if you can do that and work through with your own teammates, do mock interviews. And I think mock interviews are fun, to be kind of honest with you. I enjoy them. And it's kind of interesting to see the dynamic. And maybe you guys all, like, together and your co-founders and everyone else, you could find out, like, wow, this individual is not a good interviewer. maybe they shouldn't interview anyone. then cool. You're not going to interview anyone because you're not presentable and you're not going to present the company, right? You need the people that present the company. They need to sell the company. But anyway, yeah, the interview process, the candidate experience in itself, which includes interviewing, is incredibly critical. Does that answer your question, Pablo? I hope so.
So
You're muted again.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great answer.